This is going to blow your mind about the birth of Jesus. So you may not know this, but Jesus was born into a manger that was actually made out of stone. Back in Israel, they weren't made of wood like you see in the pictures today. They were these hardened stones because they were feeding troughs for animals. And so in Luke chapter 2, when the angel goes up to the shepherds and says there's going to be a baby born wrapped in swaddling cloths in a manger, they knew what that meant.
All right, let's see it.
Because back in that day...
I like how you turn your hat around so that bushwood is no longer prominently featured in your video.
Especially in the town of Bethlehem, they would find one perfect male spotless lamb. And that lamb would serve as the atoning sacrifice for the sins of the people for that year.
So this is entirely made up, and there are two main reasons that we know this. The first is that this is conflating two entirely separate holidays that had nothing to do with each other. One was the celebration of the Passover, which did involve sacrificing not one, but numerous lambs, and had absolutely nothing to do with atonement of sin. The other is the Day of Atonement, which was where sacrifices one day a year atone for the sins of the people. It gets a little more complex when you get into how this worked in the Hebrew Bible, but lambs were not involved. It involved a bull and two goats. The notion of a lamb slain as sacrifice for the sins of the people is a Christian innovation. It has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with anything in the Hebrew Bible or anything in first century Jewish ritual practice. Additionally, we don't have any sources contemporary to the first century CE describing the functioning of the temple and its sacrificial systems. The closest we have is the Mishnah and the Tosefta, which come from over a century later and are describing likely practices that were close to what was going on in the first century CE, but there is still no idea of a single lamb or multiple lambs sacrificed in order to atone for the sins of the people.
And they would take that lamb, and to protect it, they would put it inside this stone feeding trough so that, it would stay blameless, it wouldn't get dirty, no wolves would come and eat it, and it would stay protected because it was wrapped in swaddling cloths.
So this is 100% made up. There are absolutely no data whatsoever from anywhere approximating the ancient world that suggest any such practice ever took place. And common sense tells you that you do not protect a lamb by swaddling it, thereby binding its legs and just setting it in a hard stone container for any period of time. They will struggle, they will hurt themselves. There's absolutely no reason to do any such thing.
And then the Magi come to visit baby Jesus, and what's the gift they give him? Myrrh. They gave him the same thing that was given to him on the cross in the wine when he was about to be sacrificed.
The story of the Magi bringing the gift of myrrh to Jesus comes from the Gospel of Matthew, which makes absolutely no reference to wine mixed with myrrh in its account of Jesus' crucifixion. It is the Gospel of Mark that mentions Jesus being offered wine mixed with myrrh on the cross, and Mark has absolutely no reference to Magi or to any birth narrative. The notion that these two references to myrrh are intentionally correlated requires one presuppose the univocality of the text, which is not supported by any data.
And then what do they call him? King of the Jews. Because above him on the cross was the sign, King of the Jews. The King of the Jews, the perfect lamb that was slain, has come into the world. And this isn't just a baby we celebrate on Christmas.
So this is why people need to think critically and Google competently. These details have all just been made up. They are pure fabrication. And they are made up in order to inject these stories that have been in circulation for almost 2,000 years with increased significance and meaning to make the stories resonate more with people and have a greater emotional impact. And on an individual level, that's fine. But when people spread these stories publicly as if they were fact, they spread misinformation, and it reduces the ability of the people who are hearing these things to think critically, which just makes our society less and less capable of sussing out misinformation.